So Kamon Reynolds is YouTube's Tennessee beekeeper. Kamon is a southern beekeeper who keeps his bees northern central Tennessee at the base of the Smoky Mountains. Kamon has kept bees for over 18 years, where he's recently transitioned to a full-time beekeeper who manages 350 honey production hives. Over the last few years, Kamon has become a bee educator, where he manages a YouTube channel with a following of 42,000 subscribers. Recently, Kamon has hosted one of the largest non-associated type honey bee conferences out of Sayreville, Tennessee, called the Hive Life Conference. This past year, he brought over 900 beekeepers over a 2-day event and hosted one of the country's largest trade shows with 35 vendors. Kamon has been gracious enough with his time to join us tonight, sit and chat, and a question and answer type podcast presentation. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to bring you tonight one of the industry's most interesting YouTube characters, Kamon Reynolds. Good evening, Kamon.
Always good to chat with you, Ian.
Thanks for coming up with us today. I just want to remind everybody. Nope, there's my mic. Okay. Just want to remind everybody, if you want to join in with any questions or comments, just raise your hand and we'll join you into the conversation. Kamon and I were kind of chatting earlier, and you're telling me that you have 18-degree weather down in Tennessee right now, which seems like quite a treat. I sent you a picture of what it looked like up here.
Yeah, you guys a little bit colder up there. This is really our winter. Where we're at in Tennessee, just really this region of the United States, we may get a heavy hit from the north up in Canada, Arctic, pushing all the way down, and we might, drop and get really cold this time of the year, or we might get something coming off the Gulf of Mexico and they send that on up. So we really end up, our winters can go through stretches of 60 degrees, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, which I guess would be 18, 16, somewhere around for you guys. But then it could drop down for us as low as, we rarely get below 10 degrees Fahrenheit.
So during your conference, you guys had a lot of snow down there, and you said that's quite unique.
It is.
Do you typically get much snow through the winter then?
Not much. I mean, we were pretty surprised. Anything over 3 or 4 inches is a pretty good bit. It's not that we won't occasionally get some snow like that, but we've had 4 what we call significant snows. Now, you guys are going to love this because probably all of it together is one significant snow for you all. We had an 8-incher, a 7-incher, like a 4-inch snow, and then we had, I believe it was like another 6 or 7-inch snow, which that's crazy. A lot of years we only get maybe one of those if we're lucky. So yeah, we don't get much snow or much winter for that matter.
Okay, I'm just coming. Are you seeing me right now?
Yeah, I can see you. You've been jumping around a little bit with the internet connection.
Yeah, just give me a second. I'm going to readjust my filter.
Sure thing. But yeah, it's been good here. Bees just needing a little bit of work.
There, how's that? Yeah, I'm on Starlink. I should be better than this.
Well,
seems like every time I'm talking to you online, it seems like my internet's been choppy or cutting back and forth and such.
It surely can't be me. I'm on fiber. I mean, this stuff's blazing.
Yeah, how can you be on fiber? Boy, I'm telling you.
Tennessee has made it a really high priority to have internet. We have faster internet than what I have, and what I have, I can upload a 30-minute video in about 5 minutes. It's it's fast, but for whatever reason, Tennessee has really made that a priority.
So what I'd like to do, Kamon, is I want to kind of do a bit of a format like one of your YouTube videos you did earlier in a 20-question kind of format. So I have a bunch of questions here I want you to answer, and we'll just run through them and see how it goes. So our conversation kind of leads into the first question quite well. I'd like to ask you exactly where, like, you're just outside of Memphis, if I'm right?
No, not even close.
No.
So you got Nashville, and I'm about 2 hours northeast of Nashville.
Oh, I'm thinking Nashville. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So provide us a bit of an overview of your farm. Include your location, which involves your flow and kind of like a snapshot of your season.
All right. So I live in the northern part of the state and in the central part. So it's very hilly, lot of limestone hills, lots of creeks and rivers, and we don't have a lot of flat land. So not a lot of agriculture in this region of the state. What we do have is cattle farms. So we don't really have any, no alfalfa, canola, nothing like that. Most of your bottom land gets flooded and it's in small little bits of 5, 15. Ooh, if someone's got 30 acres in a flat location, that's something here. So our flows are primarily, whatever is in the hardwoods or, blackberry, it's all wild stuff, nothing that's cultivated. I'm only about 45 minutes from Kentucky. So I'm pretty far north as far as that goes. And we're very mild. We definitely aren't the hottest state. We're not the coolest state. We're just kind of right in the middle. And that's kind of the way I like it. I hate summer. Summer is really the roughest part of our season. Our bees don't really have a rough winter, but we have a thing going on down here in Tennessee. A lot of Tennessee beekeepers say that, oh, the winter was so cold it killed my bees. And I'm like, no, if your bees died because of a Tennessee winter, they were very, very weak. We don't get below 10 degrees Fahrenheit, but very, very rarely. And most of the times we don't even get that. So it's just a mild area. I live in Jackson County. So our flows, again, blackberry blossom, tulip poplar, basswood, clover, sumac, things of that nature.
So your main flow would be within the spring, kind of leading to summer then? Yeah.
All of our honey flow that we will get a surplus from comes between the first week of April and the second week of June. And depending on the year, it might only be, it might be a little bit shorter than that. And occasionally it might go a little bit longer. It depends on the state. You go over towards Memphis, towards the Mississippi, you get some of the Delta flows, and they have a lot of agriculture in Memphis. They have soybeans, cotton. Okay. Some of them will plant canola in that area. So and they have a lot more flows over there because of the agriculture. And then, of course, if you go to the east side of the state where the Smokies are, then that's where you're going to get your sourwood flows and other flows that are in the mountain region. So this area is not really known for a lot of beekeeping, commercial beekeeping. It's an average location.
Well, how many pounds a hive on average across the state would you say would be ballpark production?
Oh, well, as far as the state average, I think the state average is like 30 or 40 pounds.
Be pretty variable, I guess. Eh?
Yeah. So, 30, 40 pounds, I think is a state average, but we average at least 80 to 90 pounds, but we run a very intensive program. And, we just have such a short little flow. You would think with our long warm season, it would be different than that, but we have long periods of dearth in summer. And so basically after June, we're not expecting any surplus nectar in this area. We're done for the year. So you have about a 2-month period to make that crop. And of course, right. That's why we're already getting to hives right now, throwing pollen patties on. We've got to get those bees big.
Yeah, for sure. How many beekeepers would be within Tennessee? Do you know?
Oh, goodness. Several thousand, but very few. There are some commercial beekeepers, but not as much as most places in the United States. Again, this isn't really a great area for bees. It's not terrible either, but if you're in the pollination game, you want to be further south, probably. If you want better honey flows and you're in the honey business, you want to be somewhere else too, I think. Maybe on that canola, I don't know. It's good. I like it here. Advantages everywhere you go. It's more of a hobby, sideline or small professional state.
Yeah.
So selling nucleus colonies is really easy. So nuke cells are really good.
Oh yeah. So maybe on that, I can transition to the next question, just looking within your operation and then within your area, maybe highlight some of the opportunities and maybe some of the challenges that you encounter as you keep the bees.
Well, the opportunities would definitely be nucleus colonies being sold. Since we have a short flow and it's typically fairly decent if your bees are strong to capitalize on it. But many beekeepers buy their bees in the spring, and unfortunately, many do not understand the importance of feeding your bees,
Yeah.
especially in some years. This year, we had no fall flow. Usually, the fall will pack on some weight really good. Some years, maybe even surplus. But this year, I didn't even smell goldenrod one time, which is, I've never had that happen before. And so, we needed to feed a lot. So the biggest opportunity I'd say is nucleus colony cells in this area. You can get about $200 for a 5-frame nucleus colony, US dollars. And then, there's always a demand for queens. Yeah, honey sells really good here. I mean, it's in big demand. There's a lot of history in this region of beekeepers, not necessarily commercial beekeepers, but just beekeeping in general. Grandma, grandpa, somebody in the family kept bees. So a lot of people are open to the idea of buying real honey, and you can get those $8, $10 a pound prices for your honey. The biggest disadvantage would be a lot of new beekeepers, and I used to be this way, because you look around, we get a lot of good rain. It is warm, a very warm area compared to a lot of places up north. And you look around, you see all this lush greenery, these gorgeous hills, and just tons of trees. And you see flowers, but a lot of them during late June, July, August, they don't have anything for bees.
Yeah.
And so a lot of beekeepers make the mistake, well, there's flowers, my bees must be doing all right. But really, you don't know what's going on until you get into the hive. And we also have a really mild winter. And so our bees will burn through a lot of stores, because we'll get a lot of days about till Christmas. It was about 16, 17 degrees Celsius on a regular basis. So the bees are getting out, flying around, and there's nothing to do. So when we're still coming around to the concept of insulating a little bit, just to help try to conserve some food stores. And we raise a lot of mites here compared to some of the northern states as well. So there's advantages and disadvantages everywhere you go. I like beekeeping here. It's not for everybody.
What kind of outlet services do you have within Tennessee? Like, do you have access to sugar syrup very readily, or beekeeping supplies pretty close to you?
There's a lot of beekeeping supplies, tons of small mom and pop shops. Some of them make their own equipment. Some of them buy stuff from Man Lake and resell it or something like that. Now, until Kelly's was purchased by Man Lake a handful of years ago in Kentucky, I had no access to syrup. The closest place I knew of was about 5.5 hours away. And by the time I took my old Chevy to get that syrup and come back, I might as well just done without, because that thing drinks too much gas. But now I can go up to Clarkson a lot of times, pick up loaded frames and boxes and different things, and get a couple totes of syrup or more, and am good. But most beekeepers don't have cheap access to syrup. But there's easy access of equipment in this region for sure. No
Good.
problem.
So over the last 18 years, you've been beekeeping for 18, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That time flies. Eh? I've been in for 22 years. I'm like, oh man, I don't feel that experienced.
Well, things are always changing. It seems like just when you think you got it, there's no fall flow.
Yeah, I guess that's the dynamic nature of our business, is just always changing, always keeping us on our heels, and every year is never the same. So it's like fresh every year, fresh. It keeps us humble, I think, for one thing.
It should. If it doesn't, there's something wrong. You're crazy. We
what I'm just going to ask you, what over the last 18 years, what did that growth look like of your operation? You started with, I'm assuming, like 3 or 4 hives. Yeah. Me too. Pretty typical that way.
It just depends on the year. It definitely early on was more down than up for sure. And I think that's just kind of how it goes with beekeeping. It's a tough time for beekeepers, not to discourage anyone, because I think it's still totally worthwhile, but you can't just throw bees in a box. And here in Tennessee, we don't have a lot of really intensive programs, because there's not a lot of money in beekeeping in Tennessee. like there would be, say, on the canola industry up where you're at, or, in the Dakotas or California, Florida, the big honey areas. Tennessee's just kind of behind the times. We don't have some things other places do as far as education goes. And that's one of the reasons I started the YouTube channel. But early on for me, it was losing bees consistently, because when I did start to treat and monitor, I was listening to, the local people treat once a year, about July. But the problem was that was not enough. If the treatment only gave me 80% kill, if we're brooding now, which we are just starting to, and we don't shut down till November. And if we have Italians, we might have brood 11, 12 months out of the year, even if it's a tiny bit. So we raise a lot of mites here, and one treatment a year is not enough, especially if you don't get at least like 90, 95% kill. So the information took a long time to get to me, that I needed to treat more than once. I need to monitor more. And so once I started doing those things, and honestly, you and Michael Palmer was the first one that I kind of latched onto, is this guy's got something that I need to learn. And then I watched a couple of your videos. I'm like, there's really not much to glean there, but he seems all right. No, I learned a lot from you as well. As far as, and a lot of my operation, actually, I've changed some things like the rims around the lid. I saw those in your videos, and I thought that's great for our patty feeding. And I've got several two-way pallets now. So, that's the impact of these videos, for better or for worse, is we're able to get this education out. And originally my YouTube channel was for Tennessee beekeepers, because I was tired of us doing things like it was 1990, and we really needed to catch up fast.
Yeah, I find the videos, beekeepers have two approaches. One is to provide the information like that's the way it is, and the other way is to provide the information to provide the perspective. And if we can, broaden everybody's perspective and maybe understand how everybody's keeping bees, maybe we can bring some of that back down to ourselves with that knowledge and help us keep our bees a little bit better. And I get that from your channel too, when you're providing the information to YouTube, to the beekeepers through YouTube, that you provide it in such a way that you're trying to help people understand the bees, and then help them understand what to do with those bees with that understanding. And I think that's really important. And that way you can translate this information a lot more effectively to the different types. Like your beekeeping is totally different. Like, why am I talking to a Tennessee beekeeper right now?
Sure. Exactly.
It makes no sense, right? But we're bringing you up here just to gain a little bit of perspective, because what you're going to be doing down there is a lot different, but there's a lot of similarities that maybe apply that we can maybe adopt, right? So just broadening perspective, I think, is an important thing.
It is. And bees have some fundamental needs no matter where they're at. And kind of seeing with our Hive Life conferences, we try to bring people in that have a good understanding of the general fundamentals. And I think when you grasp the fundamentals and you apply them, sure, you've got to tweak it for your season. But once you are applying those needs and fundamentals that the bees have to have, then you're going to start seeing that success, start seeing a little bit of sustainability going for you. And then that's where you can dial it in for your location. And that's where we're so blessed now, because, with you being up in Canada, and, Bob down in Georgia, and several, Jose in California, and many, many more, we're starting to fill in a lot of gaps, and it's exciting. Let's see, it's Saturday this week. I've got, Dr. Cameron Jack coming on, talking about the legalities of oxalic acid use here in the United States, and kind of what their research is showing on what works and what doesn't. So now I can get access, and like you have done several times, to thousands of people in a matter of days or hours even. And we can get that to the people instead of it taking 3 or 4 years with the word of mouth.
So my operation, when I started 4 hives, it ratcheted up, like you said, got to 30, and I lost practically all of them. Then I got serious again, got in up to about 250 or whatever, slapped me back down to 150, and then just kind of almost exactly what you said, up and down, up and down. And then as I started to learn the craft a lot better, the dramatic nature of the dips kind of smoothed out. So where I'm at the top here now, and things are smoothed out. But that all comes with experience and such. How long did it take you to take your initial beginnings to what you're doing now? How long did it take you to actually figure out what you're doing?
Oh, So I've got it figured out then.
Well,
So,
that's the impression you provide to the rest of us anyway.
oh goodness, I haven't been honest, then have I? Oh, at least 10 years, and if we don't, I got into it. It was a hobby. I wasn't planning on going full blown with it. I had a farmer's market, multiple farmers markets, and doing CSAs, and selling fruits and vegetables. Well, I wanted honey because it was a in-demand product. It also, the nice thing about honey is it's not perishable like tomatoes and other things, and so it was a great product to have in addition. And of course, after you get into beekeeping, you realize, oh my goodness, these things are addictive. And then you get more of them. All of a sudden, there was no more tomatoes; it was just bees. And as I started getting more and more involved with them, I realized I would like to at least have a significant sideline. But it was definitely going up and then crashing right back down at the end of the year, for the first 3 or 4 years, I'd say. And then about 5 years in, I'm like, it's either get out or figure this out. And I started doing alcohol washes, and it was a hard time though, because there's a lot of misinformation. I do alcohol washes 5 rounds in 21 days, and I was told that was good enough, and it was not. I mean, oxalic acid vapor is just so weak, but that was supposed to work. So finding actually what will work for you, and it's constantly changing, it seems like, because there's always concerns of the treatment that you're using not maybe doing as good of a job from one year to the next, or maybe a new virus comes in and makes the mites a little bit more damaging. So it's a lot. It's a job like anything else, but I love a challenge. And if you hate challenges, then beekeeping is not for you. That is for sure.
What you kind of brushed on it earlier, and maybe I shouldn't ask this question because people ask me this and I don't know how to answer. So I give them a general
Go ahead.
overview. Yeah. For your mite treatments, what is your regime for treating mites? Like, what does that look like? You're going to do it in the spring. Obviously, you have a much longer brood rearing season than we do up here. We can get rid of, or we can get away with 1 treatment, 2 treatments, and that's all we really have to do up here. What does yours look like?
So add another significant treatment to that. So what I want to do is in December, of course, this is granted the bees have made it this far. And that's one of the reasons why we have carnies, is because with Italians, we might not get a brood break, but with good, carnies, we will get those brood breaks. And so in December, when we're still getting those 17, 18 degree days Celsius, then we are going to get into those hives and we're going to treat with oxalic acid vapor at least 2 times per colony. And that's going to clean them up good. And then we don't treat them till after the honey flow in June. So we quickly, as soon as we can, get the supers off, and then we'll hit them with either Apivar or Apiguard. There's been some concerns with Apivar. I'm not going to talk about that. But just, I think the moral of the story is make sure you double check that what's working for you in the past is still working. And but usually what I would do is I would treat with Apivar in June, and then I would clean up with thymol again in August and do another alcohol wash. And that was really important in keeping those mites low. People talk about keeping them at a certain percentage, but it really makes a difference when you keep those mites low. They just brood harder. The colonies are more resilient. Everything's better when the mites are low. So we have a saying here: great queens, dead mites, and good nutrition. And when all 3 of those things come together, swarming is the next issue you're going to have.
Indeed. I'm going to shift gears to marketing of your crop. You mentioned market gardens. I'm froze up here. Am I coming through?
I can hear you.
Okay. I can't see a thing. I'll just keep talking. Could you speak a little bit about how you market your crop? Is it through market gardens, retail, or farm gate? Speak a little bit on that.
So what we do is we have stores, like it could be something as simple as a farmers co-op, where they just sell stuff for cattle farmers and all that kind of thing, and general supplies like that. It could be a hippy dippy store. It could be anything like that. It doesn't really matter. What we do is we get kind of a handshake contract with these places, and we deliver 3-4 cases of honey at a time. We only do 1 size of jar. Typically, that's a 2-pound jar. We keep it simple for ourselves, and we get into these stores and we drop it off. We collect the money, and they make a markup on it. And so it works really good. And I've got some farmers markets where the ladies that are already taking flowers or a crop to the farmers market, they will take our honey as well. And that way I'm not having to be tied up with a lot of time. We're just bottling it up and just distributing it. So a lot of times when we're going and delivering to one person, we can deliver to 4 others in the general area, and it moves really good like that. And we don't get a premium of like, you know, $10 or $12 a pound, but we can get $6 or $7 a pound, and then and sell them several cases at a time, be really efficient with it. And so we're getting more than the commercial bulk prices. So we're kind of an in between, really, and I like that. It's the way I like to do business. The problem is, as you know me, I'm a talker. And so if I sell 1 jar of honey at a time, I'll spend 30 minutes talking about bees. I lose money.
Do you do any wholesale marketing of your crop?
No, it's all sold just like that.
Yeah. Do you have any opportunities wholesale, or is everything pretty much to the city right beside you?
There aren't a whole lot of opportunities. See, most of the commercial agriculture is on the far west corner in Memphis. There is a little bit in Nashville, but primarily Memphis, or on the far side in the mountain regions. And you know, I just don't want to fool with it. I would rather produce less. I don't have to produce as much honey if I can get $6 or $7 a pound for it. You know, so I think in order to, if I was going to try to do bulk, then I would have to jump up significantly to make that worth it. As far as selling to individuals, we don't do anything like that. We thought about maybe selling it online, and then that way we could kind of get that $10 a pound price. But looks like Ian's screen is missing again. Can you hear me, Ian? Well, I'm just going to talk bad about Ian then.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my video off.
Okay.
Am I coming through?
Yeah, I can hear you, Ian. So someone had a question. What's our average yield per year? I'm going to answer that real quick. If you have drawn comb, and if you have a good strong hive with a good queen, you can average 100 pounds a year here. It's a very short window. Most of that honey is going to come over a 3 or 4 week period. And if your bees are ready, you can average 100 pounds, but these colonies have to be ripped and ready when the time is. If they're 2 or 3 weeks late, your average is going down to 60 pounds. So and it varies from year to year. Last year was the worst spring on record. Some of you may remember that if you watch the videos, and we had just gorgeous colonies in April, and we were having to feed them syrup. I've never fed in April before. Usually everything's flooding in. We're adding supers and can't keep up. And we were feeding that year in April. So that year we averaged about 55 to 60 pounds per colony. And so it wasn't near as good. This year we averaged about 110. Actually, it might've been a little bit more than that. It was really nice. But that's how it is for you. But
Kamon, are you full-time with bees, or are you still doing truck driving?
I'm full-time with bees and related stuff. Obviously, we do some other things around here, like bee conferences and stuff now. But yeah, it's all bee stuff.
I have a question here from a beekeeper, kind of in regards to that. One of the most I guess one of the questions I get asked most is from beekeepers who, they have they started this beekeeping business. They have all this ambition. They are growing this business. They have a job, and just making that transition to, that full-time career of being a beekeeper. And I guess the question that the beekeeper is asking here is, could we get some conversation around the preparations you made, not just with the business, but within life outside of the business, to feel ready to give up the securities, consistencies, reliabilities that are provided by the day job? The switch from being able to use off-farm money to maintain lifestyle and pumping all money generated from the farm back into the farm, accepting the slow growth due to capital restrictions from now needing to draw funds for personal expenses from the farm. So that's the question from the beekeeper. If you understand the gist, just maybe talk a little bit around that transition of having that off-farm job with that secured revenue source, then relieving that and focusing solely on the security of your own farm.
It's hard, and I wouldn't say that I would recommend it to everybody. You've got to have a spouse that is on board without question. The word sacrifice definitely applies, and you've got to be willing to do without a lot of things that many people consider normal. I've never been normal, so for me, it was no big deal. And I didn't marry a normal girl. She's quite awesome. And so what a lot of girls, most women would have divorced me at this point. Let's just put it that way. And thankfully, Laurel knew what she was getting into when we got married. Well, she had a general idea. Neither one of us knew it would be as hard as it was, and it's frustrating. And when you're working, a job where you're gone. Back when I was trucking full time, I mean, over the road, I'd only be home a day and a half. And so Laurel would be taking my truck and she'd be feeding the bees and pumping it into hives and getting things prepped. And then when I was home, I spent 90% of it, at least 75% of it working bees. And you have to both be on the same page. I was missing some stuff with the kids I did not want to miss. You cannot buy new cars. I've never purchased a new car. Early on, I don't think you can. And then you go without things. I've still never owned a vehicle with air conditioning, which down here is a big deal. I don't know if it is up there or not. But you go without, and we've paid cash for, cars, and I'm still driving older vehicles and they work good. But you have to live within your means. And then if I could go back and do one thing, I'd tell myself to not be in such a rush. But when you're young, and I'm still pretty young, but when you're young, you feel like you don't have any time, but you have more time than you think you do. And I could have made it a lot easier on Laurel and I if we had just focused, instead of going for that 150 colonies running a full-time job. Let's just manage 100 and do it really well. We would have made more money if we had done it like that. Growing what you can handle at the time is devastating to your business. It would be better to have 50 colonies run at an elite level than to have 150 colonies that you can't manage properly. You have so much invested. You can only, you miss so much if you lose those bees and you have to buy them, especially if you're in an area like Canada. So, grow with your bees. Don't overshoot it, but sacrifice. And then eventually, as you start making money and you start being sustainable, and then that's where you start making your money, is off sustainability. Your bees living from one season to the next, and not only producing honey crops that hopefully get around 100 pounds a colony, but also then be able to make your own splits to regenerate the operation and grow it if need be. And when we started raising our own queens, that made a difference. Mite control made the biggest difference, really dialing that in, and obviously feeding. Those three things is why we preach those things. And as you start making money, then it gets tricky. And what was really hard actually was when we were having success with bees, because we weren't quite at the point I could quit my job, but we had to do something. And so I got a part-time job, which was not ideal. I was working the most insane hours of, sometimes being at work till 3 or 4 a.m. And then you get home and you got to get your schedule back to working bees, getting up at 7 a.m., 8 a.m. So sacrifice, that's the word I would use. And you got to be willing to do it. It's not easy, and I don't have all the answers for it, but, without my wife helping me, it would not, I don't think, been possible for me to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate the bit of feedback on that. It's definitely not an easy question to answer, and there is no real answer to that. I don't think it's just based on our own personal needs, and I think, like you say, a lot of patience from our loved ones.
Sure. Well, a lot of patience from our loved ones. And it's not just my wife. I had, my mom and my dad were very family oriented and close. And, there was, years where I didn't do a fraction of what I used to do with everybody because of this dream that I had. And, they weren't ugly about it, but they were frustrated at times. And that's, pressure you get from your family. And so in order to do these things, you've got to sacrifice. And it's worth it to me. That's what I really wanted. It's what Laurel wanted. We wanted to live a different lifestyle, but you definitely have to be on the same page. And also, like you said, it's different for each person. I, graduated out of high school. I didn't want to go to college. I was not really good early on about holding down a job because I was always trying to get my own business going. So I didn't have a lot of capital. I didn't have any assets that I derived from my parents. I don't think that they should have given me anything or anything like that. But, so I had nothing basically. And so some people might start and they might already have some assets. So it might be different, but don't go in there and just drop $200,000 on bees either.
Yeah, that's what I say. If you're going to drop the money, make sure you drop it into equipment, something that doesn't disappear on you within, a winter.
Exactly. It's really fast how fast you can lose a bee operation. One bad year.
Before I transition to the next question, I see Tim has a question asking you about your bottling process and how do you pack and how do you deal with the FDA?
The FDA, those guys. So thankfully in Tennessee, we don't really have a lot of restrictions. As far as that goes, you have to have a packing, it's pretty basic, but like a honey type house after you've produced 150 gallons a year, but it's nothing heavily regulated or anything like that. That's one good thing that we have here. So I don't have to worry about the FDA or anything like that. The only thing I have to worry about is making sure I have a label with my location and all that kind of stuff on it, and not kill anybody with my honey. That helps a lot. As far as how we pack it, I've got a
70. Those are the bad jokes I said you were going to bring to the group.
Yeah, exactly. I had to put one in there. I didn't want to make you a liar or anything like that. So I'm sure there'll be more. As far as the bottling goes, I've got a Nasenheiter. I think that's how you say it, easy fill, and it's got a computer on it. So that's really nice. And it's just hooked up to a 70-gallon Dadant bottling tank. Oh, yeah. And I've got barrels that are warmed. And I really like the 70-gallon, for my size, because I can put a whole drum in there before it's run all the way out. So it's just constantly, feeding that. And we just have it programmed. So if we want 2 pounds, which we almost do exclusively 2 pounds and nothing else. And okay. So we just have it programmed, put the jars underneath, press a button, fills it up exactly. Done. And we don't have it all figured out. Honestly, we've grown so much in the last 2 or 3 years. We just can't keep up with the growth right now. And it's been fun and it's been frustrating because I can't dial in my bee operation for the YouTube and the conference, and I can't go full on out on the YouTube or the conference because of the beekeeping. So yeah, I'm having to really, I have so many fires to put out. I'm having to pick which fire gets put out. It's a good problem to have, but it's still frustrating because I don't want anything to burn to the ground, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a good transition to the next topic I want to talk to you a little bit about, and that's YouTube. So why did you start the YouTube channel?
Of course, that was for, well, first of all, my wife said I needed to, and I finally listened, and that is the darndest truth. She told me about 2 years before I started, I should have done one. The reason I did not is because I felt like there were, and there are, beekeepers that are, better beekeepers than I am with more years of experience. So why should I be on YouTube? Well, what I came to realize is that there's still a need for somebody that's running an operation my size and sharing my fails and my wins with other people and helping them out and is where I can. And especially in Tennessee, I looked around and saw, wow, our education is just really poor. And it is. It's just really poor here. But again, it's not a big money making industry here in the States. So they don't put really any investment into it. So it's not a high priority. And our average losses are like 60% or more every year. And we're in Tennessee. It's not like we have a negative 30-degree cold front coming through during our winters to off the bees. We don't have to worry about that. So we just wanted to be able to help primarily people in this region. I never in my wildest dreams thought that it would lead to the point that it is now. So,
yeah, that's going to ask you next is, obviously you didn't expect the channel to get as big as it is right now. And I would say 45,000 subscribers is quite the accomplishment. When you look at the demographic of beekeepers across the world, beekeepers don't get a lot of views and a lot of subscriptions because we're a very small industry and we're a very small group of people.
We are.
So, yeah. So when you get that kind of attention, it's quite complimentary. So I guess my question is, how do you feel about that?
Well, I feel humbled first of all, but I also feel a huge responsibility. It's actually more pressure than I ever thought it would be, because there's two pressures. First of all, there's the pressure to make sure I don't goof up, because I have seen some YouTube videos that have been really bad. Like, hey, you can use this to treat your bees or do this with your bees, and this is going to kill mites, or this is going to do this for you. And it actually is harmful to the bees or doesn't damage the mites at all. And then beekeepers trust that at face value and lose it. So we don't want to be a part of anything like that. We want to just be a part of a community of, good fundamental information that helps new beekeepers and beekeepers on their way to becoming, veterans, to be able to dial it in and be really good in their region. We just want to see beekeepers thrive. And so there's a lot of pressure that I put upon myself. And it's not like anyone's messaged me going, Kamon, you better not, goof it up. My wife, she'll remind me of when I goof up, let me tell you. But I want to make sure that I'm a contributor to what we do. And of course, now with the conference, there's a lot of pressure I put on myself to for excellence. But that's just the way that I am. It's the way you are as well. I've noticed is very self-competitive, and so that
it's very important. Like when you stand in front of even teachers, or you look at teachers in front of a classroom of kids, when they stand in front of the classroom of kids and speak about something, they make sure they know what they're talking about, right? And there's one thing about speaking in front of a large group of people about beekeeping practices like you do. It makes you research and makes a person figure it out before you get in front of 45,000 subscribers and make yourself look like an ass, right?
I still manage that, but thank goodness for the edit button, right?
Yeah, the edit button's a golden ticket right there. Except you do a lot of live too, I noticed too, and that's a little more intimidating.
Well, it's easy. Laurel holds the camera, and I call them one shot, one kills. I'm starting to do more editing in my videos because there are some limitations when you do a one shot video. Yes, it's fast and it's very live and real. However, sometimes it's nice to be able to piece in a little bit of information, maybe linked to some research or something, and kind of bring it all together. But again, that's something that I'm going to try to work on and get better at that. It's been really interesting. 3 years ago, I live in a very rural area, so nobody hardly knew who I was. And now I can't go anywhere without, I took my trash not too long ago and someone was like, hey, you're the bee man. I'm like, oh, darn. And here we go. But it's all good. And I love beekeeping. I love beekeepers as much as, I love getting into the bees, but I love the community as much as I love the bees themselves. And there's a lot of really good people in this industry. I'm so thankful to have the friends that I do. So I just want to be a part. I don't have to have everything, because I definitely don't. But let's like bringing on Cameron, Jack, or something like that. Let's find those people. And I know you do this a lot too. And just build this community and make beekeeping strong. And it's working.
What would you say would be your favorite video that you've created? I'm just related to me. Like I made a video and I have 4 million clicks on it. It's like, oh, I'm going to recreate that video and try to get another, and I can't do it. I copy it word from word in my title and I copy the exact video itself, and I cannot recreate the type of traffic that other video got. What's one of the videos that really hit off on you like that, make you a bit of money? And then what's maybe one of more of your favorite videos you put out there that you seem to get a lot of feedback from?
It's hard. I don't really have a personal favorite video as far as what I feel like has been one of my best. I really like the videos that honestly that sometimes don't get the clicks that are for our core subscribers. There's a certain amount, you get 42,000, whatever the number is now, subscribers, but there's probably only about 4 or 5,000 that are just diehard watch most of my video people. And I appreciate those. So there's some videos that only get watched maybe 6,000 or 7,000 times, but it's primarily those people, the ones that help them out the most. And I would think where I'm able to really go, hey, this is how we split our hives and kill the mites all in one shot. We requeen them, we split them, we kill them. That excites me. It's not a video that gets me a lot of views, but it's a technique that we can use to split the hives, requeen them, and then we can feed them and just have that great queen's dead mites and good nutrition come together, and they can get that sustainability and get that for themselves. And I like being able to help other people with stuff that when I discovered, I remember that feeling of, wow, this is going to help my operation out. And so as far as like which videos got me the most clicks, I don't have any big videos like that. I don't think I have a video that has even 400,000, 300,000 views. I haven't. What I've done, I guess it's got us to this many, is just 42,000 subscribers with my good looks and charm. There's no
Well,
one of those bad jokes.
Well, you got to use it somewhere, right?
That's right. No, we've pumped out a lot of videos. So I've only been on YouTube for 3 years, and we're working up to 500, 450, 500 videos now.
Yeah.
So we're about creating a lot of good content, and we have not had a video that has gone, into the millions or even close to that. But that's okay. I have a smaller group than some guys, but I really feel like we communicate well. And obviously that's where the conference comes into play. And you're right. I mean, it's a niche group, and I love it because I believe 95% of beekeepers are awesome to be around. And the other 5% I can just block on YouTube. And
one thing I noticed with you, that I always say you speak to an audience. That's what I try to do. I speak to my very specific audience, which is myself, actually. But you speak to your audience, and you're able to connect with them, and that's really unique. Being able to connect with this demographic of people, and it's creating an impact. Because I'm seeing that I have beekeepers email me every day, and they're relaying me information that they've gleaned off your channel, and they're asking for feedback. And I say, well, yeah, that's good. Like I keep track of you all the time to see exactly where you line up on all these issues and such. And I don't think you miss very often. So what you're bringing to the community is right on the money, and people are absorbing that and making better beekeepers out of that. So that's pretty good. I want to ask you a question in regards to industry. Before I got into kind of stepping in front of when I started stepping in front, started to interact more with people, started getting involved with the MBA and industry. When I started going to associations, all this kind of stuff, I gleaned a different perspective on how the industry works.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it very interesting because it's a side of beekeeping I wasn't exposed to before. And it is just one of the most fascinating things that I've ever done in my life. And it's really added a lot to my business. How has that kind of contributed to your overall running of your business? And how has your perspective of the beekeeping industry changed as you've kind of built this spotlight onto yourself?
Yeah, it's really been eye-opening, especially the last year. we started conferencing, and that opened my eyes to a whole new world of the bee industry. I talk to a lot of companies now, and a lot of fellows that are either inventing products or have invented things, and or they build woodenware or sell plastic foundations, different things. So seeing that side of the industry has really shown me some of the issues that we face. Talking to a couple of the scientists and just being able to communicate more, because being honest, I had some issues with the bee industry 5-10 years ago, and some of that was correct, but it was misplaced just based off on ignorance. I didn't know really what was going on. And primarily what I'm hoping to do is just be able to bridge the gap of understanding between the industry side, the hobby sideline beekeepers, because that's I think that's why people do relate to my videos, because we have struggled a lot. We bought into the treatment-free philosophy early on. And, if someone wants to do that, that's great, but it does not work very good. It's it's a complicated issue. And if it does work for some, it's a very, very small genre of beekeeping. And it's not as easy as just throwing bees in a box either. So a lot of beekeepers, though, came into the industry and they thought that, man, I'm going to be able to, maybe it's the flow hive crowd that came in. Nothing wrong with those people, but you think that it's going to be a lot easier, and you find out there's a lot more bee husbandry to this. So a lot of people can relate to my story, and I'm very honest about it. You can either be ashamed by it, or you can put your ego aside and let people know what really happens. And you find out that a lot of them can relate to those colony losses and those poor decisions and, those things. So we're just hoping that in a general way, we're able to take the information and just collectively all advance. And it really, I think the hobby level is a great place to start, because that's where we all started. I mean, by and large, which is a handful of hives and doing our best. But as far as the industry side of things, we have a bit of a monopoly down here with some of the companies. I don't know what it's like up in Canada. I imagine there's actually fewer companies just due to the nature of all the snow and ice and just farmland. But we
do have like BeeMade is our one of the packers up here, and they do supply bee supplies, but the rest all come pretty much from the southern states. We're not southern states, but we go into Utah, or we go down to Iowa or Man Lake, places like that. A lot of Man Lake comes shipped up, so a lot of it's on transit. Yeah, that's how we get access to our supplies.
Right. And so, Man Lake's a big one. And I have no problem with a big company making money. I have no problem with that at all. But sometimes when you have, Man Lake came in, bought out many companies down here, many companies, and they just weren't able to handle it all. And they still haven't been able to. And so it's really opened the door for a lot of smaller companies to thrive down here. And they're using YouTube to let people know that they exist and that they're ready and willing to serve. And wow, I've seen so much change. At our conference, we had 4 vendors do better than Man Lake. And I was really surprised by that. I was excited as well. And it's not that I have any problem with Man Lake making money, but it's exciting to see the competition, because if the beekeepers are informed and we have more businesses competing for the customer, then the customer is going to win, because the customer is going to choose the company that does right by them. They have more options. And also I'm seeing a lot of inventors starting to get involved in beekeeping again. I think a lot of it's they were already prone to these things, but before, unless someone like Man Lake picked you up and sold your product, it was going to be hard to market unless you did something like Flow Hive and have a lot of loans and money to do crowdfunding and things. So, most guys don't have access to that. So now with YouTube, we're able to get a business from ground zero. One of the guys, like the Laura B vaporizer guy, he went from January of last year to not selling a vaporizer to selling way over 1,000 units in a 1-year period. So he's got a legitimate business going like that. Yeah. But that's largely in part due to multiple YouTube channels. Anyways, got a little rant there. Sorry. And
Yeah, no, that's good. I believe in competition because it spurs on innovation, and the customer, like the ones using those products, are going to be the ones that benefit the most from that. So I believe a lot in that. I don't like monopolies where you have companies corner markets, because then that just reduces our options, and we need more options in this business. So I'm right on line with you on that.
And
That kind of
innovation, it's kind of also one more thing real quick is, same goes with YouTube, and we need plenty of guys on YouTube, because beekeepers need options to be able to compare, hey, who's helping me the most, who's getting it the best, and that pressure drives me to create better content. And also again, the communication, like I know you've been tinkering around with things up there with pollen subs and things. I'm tinkering around some things down here. Bob's tinkering around, but now we have an open outlet to share and inspire and communicate and create opportunities. And I see tons of new opportunities now. And maybe it's just because I'm in on the know, but go ahead, Ian. I love it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That kind of leads into the next little bit I wanted to talk to you about, and that's your Hive Life conference you've been putting on these last couple of years. What spurred you on to? I mean, I'm involved with putting on associated conferences up here in regards to our AGM and such, and it's a lot of work. And we have a team here to put it all together. What spurred you on to put on a independent type beekeeping conference like this?
A couple of things, and yeah, it is a lot of work. It took 4 months to put on the last one.
I bet.
I did not realize. I did not. But that's the story of my life. Jumping in with both feet and then realizing that I better learn how to swim really fast. So what I wanted to do is create an area of not only of education, but also fun. I've been to several bee meetings, and a lot of them are dry and boring, and they're not very exciting. And I don't get that, because beekeeping is exciting, and it's definitely not boring at all. But I like old-fashioned things. I love my American-made Chevy truck. I love old-fashioned things and old-fashioned music, but sometimes you have to embrace the new technology. And our conferences down here, by and large, felt like we were doing it like it was 100 years ago, and we were bringing in the same people we were decades ago. We needed some fresh blood, and it wasn't changing. And primarily what we wanted was to create an opportunity for everybody to win. For people who wanted to be educated, we want to bring in the best educators, and not just PhDs who are really good with research. We want practical beekeepers, and that's what we focus on, is finding practitioners, people who actually live this. And we want to learn from those men and women. I'm really excited about this coming year's lineup. And this is one of the bigger areas that I think gets overlooked with conferences, is the trade show. And it's a win-win for everybody. Our vendors just killed it this year. We had 5 vendors do over $50,000 worth of product, and they were able to give great deals to the beekeepers. Obviously, only the ones who drive are able to get most of the deals. A couple of the companies were still doing some online deals and shipping them to the door with a percentage off. But many beekeepers that drove from Texas, Oklahoma. We had a couple Canadians here actually as well, which was surprising. And some of them were taking an extractor home, bags of pollen sub reduced $30 off. And there was many reports of people saving $300, $400, $500 on product. And not only just saving, but we had like 7 brands of extractors. We had uncapping tanks. You know how our Cowan system works. Well, Lyson makes a smaller version of that. We had 3 of those units there. Creamed honey was being made. So we just want beekeepers to come and do what they do best. And you can come and literally just see all kinds of cool product. Beekeepers, and we had one guy have an artificial insemination booth where he would explain every piece of equipment and how it worked. I'm not going to get into artificial insemination. That's crazy. But it's neat to see. And so we just wanted to put an event on where people could collaborate. They could meet beekeeping can kind of be isolating to a degree, especially the last couple of years where you don't go typically to your store or something and find another beekeeper. And so having that community is important. And we just wanted a place where that community of diehard, hardcore beekeepers could share education, get to see the innovations of the industry, and just have a good time, frankly. That's what we wanted.
Yeah, I think what I seen was going on down there. I know you invited me down twice now, and I haven't showed up twice now.
Yeah. Third strike and you're out, you know.
Yeah, third time's a charm. I see, like we're involved with associated effort up here, and what we bring is a lot of industry issue, a lot of research, a lot of business at hand, and there's a reason for that because when you deal with associations and such, that's what it's all about. It's about issues and research and what we're investing in and what's coming ahead and all this business types thing. And I think sometimes we're kind of forgetting about beekeeping. Sometimes the audience just wants to hear about beekeeping, and this is maybe where you're stepping in and you're speaking directly to that demographic of beekeepers that wants to be there to hear about beekeeping. You have no strings attached, and you can just provide all the content you want. So it's quite the opportunity you have going there. I wanted to ask, as you've gone through 2 of your Hive Life conferences now, what kind of lessons have you learned putting these events on?
Well, lessons I've learned. I could talk for 4 hours on the things that we could have done better this year. It actually went well overall. And one thing that I've had as a lesson for myself is I think we can take this, whether it's social media, YouTube, whether it's in our general lives, is we've got to shut down the negativity, because let me tell you, I got a lot of negativity on the conference. And so I really didn't do anything.
What kind of negativity would you got?
Well, it happened to be on the same week as the ABF. And so I hated that, and I still hate it. It's going to still be on the same week as the ABF. It's so hard to get a facility. And this year we're looking at possibly as many as 1,500 people. So, that's a massive building. But we can't find a date. I mean, everything's booked solid, at least in the state of Tennessee. And there's a lot of logistics to think of there, but there are some people, no matter what you do, they're not going to like what you're doing. And also some negativity, just as far as, social distancing and, all the things that are going on in the world right now. And everyone's definitely entitled to their opinion. I really believe in the freedom of opinion and choice and all those things. But, in Tennessee, we're very different than even a lot of states in our country. And we've been open for a very long time to a lot of things. And some people hate our guts for it. And I got emails from chief executive medical officers and all kinds of different things about our conference. And, we still had 900 people show up. They had the time of their lives, and we're totally fine with doing so. And some of them chose to mask, and several of them, maybe most of them, were vaccinated. I have no clue. To me, it's not my business. That's the way
sure. Awkward times we're living in. Hopefully things calm down in the next half year anyways, right?
It would be nice if things could calm down a little bit, but sometimes it has to get worse before it can get better.
Yeah. For the conference, what would be your favorite thing about hosting a conference like that?
Well, the worst thing is not having time for anybody, because I was so busy. Next year, I'm going to do a better job of having more personnel so I can be a little bit more available.
Or did I say worst? I meant favorite thing.
Well, that's what you said. I segued. So try to keep up, Ian. So the best part about putting on one of those conferences, seeing all of the other excited beekeepers, the energy is just, you can feel it all the way to your soul. I mean, it's just through the air, so much energy for beekeeping, and there's so much creativity and getting to meet guys. Unfortunately we weren't able to meet you, but it's really surreal because I've talked to you for years now in some capacity. And it seems like I know you really good, but I've never met you in person. And a lot of these guys, it's that way. And of course, getting to meet guys like Bob Benny, Bruce, Gene, lots of guys there, Jose from California, and just getting to see these families and getting to see the young kids. We had a lot of kids and a lot of women beekeepers there. I was really excited about that because you just don't know. A lot of clubs, you don't see a whole lot of gals, at least in this area. But goodness, I want to say we had 35 to 40% girls, which I think for beekeeping is really good.
Yeah, that's good.
And a lot more, getting involved. So just really the community. That's really what it's all about, because there's so many things going on that really I have nothing to do with. I built the conference, but people come in and then they do their thing. And then they find their own group to network with. And that's my favorite part, is seeing after the conference, the relationships that were built and the byproduct of that. So that's what really makes it worth it for me, for sure.
My favorite part, I've been involved in a few conventions up here with the MBA, and my favorite part of the conference is the evening after the event's done. All the speakers and the ones organizing the event get together, go to the pub, have a beer, and everybody just kind of kicks back.
Must be nice.
That's my favorite part. And then, you kind of coffee shop talk. And it's that's what I do it for, is for the evening after the event is done. Yeah.
I I got that the first year. I didn't really get any of that this year because the conference was so massive. Yeah. And I just didn't know, going from like 225 to 900. We grew it a lot, even more than that, just over the population, the massive amounts of bee product and everything. I didn't have enough personnel. I don't think anybody really could notice by and large, but I was running around like a headless chicken.
Yeah, 900, that's a huge family to look after. It takes a lot of, well, I mean, in a lot of ways, though, it's a business, right? And sometimes you have to let the business run itself. And maybe you'll have to get more used to doing that.
Well, I thankfully this year I was able to find a lot of good people at the conference that helped me out into some capacity, and we'll be giving them bigger roles of responsibility, and we're going to have to.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that you're nothing changes and everything's good and we're all able to get together and you're going to get to see this in person. But if we have 1,500 people, whatever the number ends up being, it's not just one big room now. It's going to be 3 big rooms and multiple speakers going at once. Speaking of speakers, if anyone's got a connection to Paul Kelly up there, you got to end with Paul Kelly, tell him I'm trying to get a hold of him, and I'm going to pay him to come down and speak to the good people of the United States. We really love Paul Kelly and his videos. And I know that he's a busy guy, but we want him to be busy down in Tennessee in January.
I'll reach out to him. I'll see. I was going to ask you, I don't know if you're going to have me down there to present or not next year, but if you do, I'd like Laurel to introduce me.
Yeah. Well, it's a bigger ask than I mean, she is totally shy. I think I can get it done, though. It's probably going to take like a vacation of some sort or something big. But I think I can manage it. And she deserves the trip, I'm sure, after the conference. So yeah, I have you on the board for speaking. So that is the plan. Giving 2 talks and then probably one on your reasons why it's taken you 3 years to get there.
Well, Sandy and I plan to do a little bit of sightseeing in the Smokies, so we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be good.
I noticed you're also a music player. You play the mandolin.
Yeah, I'm actually going.
Yeah, where'd that come from? And kind of your audience is like, "Oh, he plays the mandolin. We've never seen that before."
Yeah, I try not to water down the YouTube channel too much, with any other content. I occasionally I'll do something off the wall, like play the mandolin for the YouTube, but I really try to just focus on the beekeeping. And back in the day, I started actually beekeeping and mandolin the same year. So between the two of them, they kept me very busy. Yeah. It let me tell you, if you want to keep your kids out of alcoholism and drugs and all those things, bluegrass and the beekeeping is the way to do it. They won't have any money left over for anything else. and it's the darndest truth. But so yeah, I played mandolin. My brother Ethan played a guitar, and my brother Hayden played banjo. My dad picked up the bass after the three of us played together.
Oh, cool.
And I have this terrible trait,
That
which is,
wasn't your family that was up on front though. That was your
oh
band,
no,
right?
those
Yeah.
those are just some guys that I threw together. I played with them years ago on some state competitions and various things around the country. But that was years ago. I used to think I wanted to be a professional mandolin player, but then I realized you have to travel to do that, and I didn't want to be gone 200 something days out of the year. I'm very family oriented, and I also learned that there was tens of dollars to be made in bluegrass, and I wanted nothing to do with that either. So my wife was like, "You got to get a real job." So thus I became a truck driver,
Yeah.
trying to build up the bees. And but it's fun. It's a lot of fun to play. It's also kind of like the conference, though. It's the same feeling when you get up there and play with a group, and you make something happen together that only you could do as a team. It's a really special feeling, that camaraderie. And that's the way I feel about the conference too, just getting to see all these people come together and talk about bees and be creative. So the mandolin, I hadn't played a show like that for about 7 years. So it had been a while, but it's like riding a bicycle. You just kind of, it takes a little while and you get used to it again. So speaking of bluegrass, I will actually have the entire 1 hour show at the conference on my YouTube channel. I am going to release that into a video. And so anyone who wants to can be entertained by that if they're desperately bored, or put it in their garden to keep the crows away, getting the seed.
They came in. We've kept you here a little bit longer than what I expected to, but I'd like to end our little chat here off with a bit of a rapid fire. So I got a few questions here, and it's just kind of really random all over the place. So just kind of answer as you feel fit.
Sure.
So what's the key to successful beekeeping?
Not giving up. That's definitely the first thing. That's the only thing I did right in the first several years, is just not giving up, and then understanding the bee's fundamental needs and finding the best ways to address those, and keeping stress low. Bees, like everything else, the less stress, the better.
Carniolians, Italians, Caucasian, or other?
I like hybrids. Nothing like too dialed in, but I like carnies, but I also have had really good success with Italians, and within both of those, and I'm sure Caucasians the same, there's so much diversity. You can get some Italians that are just so gentle, and some Italians that will just eat you alive. And the same goes with carnies. And honestly, I find the best bees are the ones that you raise for yourself or are raised locally. That's what I think.
We kind of touched on this just a little earlier. What's your hobby besides beekeeping? And maybe I'll caveat mandolin.
No, I had it. I don't play it like ever anymore. The only reason I played it is because I promised it at that event. So then for about 2 months before the event, I was playing it about 2 hours a day, getting back into shape on it. And but as far as hobbies go, I love being outdoors. I love hunting, sports, anything that's outside and that's challenging. Gardening, I guess that would be my next hobby. Is I love to garden.
Buying queens or queen rearing?
They both have their place. I don't trust anybody as much as I trust the queens that I raise. And if you can raise your own, it's better. But if you can find a reliable source, then that's great too. But a lot of the commercial queens, they're not given enough time to lay. They're not what I need. The last 100 I bought from a guy in Georgia, big commercial operation. About 30 of them were duds right out of the gate. That's just ridiculous. And 50% of them were just queens. So I saw someone had a question about requeening, how often. Our queens lay a lot here, so we requeen almost every year now. And it's not always we go in and kill the queen, because if she's doing a killer job, then we let her do her thing, but we'll make a split off of that colony and put a new queen in that one. So if she does run out of gas late in the season, or even coming out of winter, if she's just not getting it done, then we have a daughter in a nucleus colony or a single, and we can combine those together and we're where we needed to be. So requeening is a very important part of any operation, or just making splits with fresh queens as backups for sure.
Who were your role models or mentors?
Well, I didn't have a lot of any good mentors locally, which was really a shame. The few that I did have were really good about buying bees every year. And I soon realized after a couple of seasons that I needed to learn from people who were selling bees, not from people who were buying the bees every year. And so there wasn't really anybody successful close by. I should have found somebody and driven a long ways and just forced that out. That helped me so much. But YouTube really wasn't a thing when I got into beekeeping. So when I read an article by Michael Palmer and then a couple of years later, listened to his story on YouTube about, Michael was really honest about him losing bees and replacing them year after year, like this treadmill, and he just barely surviving from year to year. And I'm like, man, that is me right now. And he talked about raising his own bees and, dialing it in with mites and everything a little bit more. And I started raising my own queens. And then I started focusing on the mites more. And lo and behold, the next year I produced my first good honey crop. It still wasn't great, but I saw, okay, this is the way. And then we just kept pushing forward from there. Michael Palmer would be the first, guys like Randy Oliver, lots of books I love to read. Ian's inspired me a couple times as well, mainly on, why I'm glad I live in the southern part of the North America. No, it's all good. Yeah, you've helped me out a lot as well, Ian. So, wow, just don't let it go to your head.
What is the best type and flavor of honey?
Oh, totally not canola. My favorite. That's a really.
I'm going to send you
one.
some canola honey down there.
You need to. I'm sure it's great, and I've been so blessed with this YouTube channel to meet so many beekeepers. And literally on my table right here, I've got some sourwood from North Carolina, which is in the United States is probably one of the most faked honeys in this region, because it goes for a premium, and the tourists come in and they just buy whatever they think is honey. But sourwood's hard to produce, and it's really good if it's the real stuff. And so I've got that. I've got Hawaiian honey. I've got our honey. Got all kinds. And you know what? There is no such thing as the best honey out there. It's just awesome how many types there are and textures. So yeah, bring it on.
I asked Bob Beanie that question, and you know what he told me?
Is honey. That's what I say a lot of times, but this time I was trying to be a little bit more political about it. And honestly, it really just depends on the mood. I really like the honey we have. It's wonderful on biscuits. We have a light honey that's not too strong. So if you're wanting to cook something like bread, it doesn't really have an overpowering flavor. But then again, my buddy literally just 45 minutes up the road, lives up on the hills, nothing but hardwoods, produces a really dark amber honey. And it is a little bit strong for like something like delicate, like biscuits or something toast. It'll work, but man, it makes the best barbecue sauce I've ever had. I mean, it is just a perfect dark flavor, strong for barbecue sauce. So all honey is pretty unique. You just got to figure out how to specialize it.
Yeah, I hear you. And the last question I'm going to ask you before we let you go, if you had the choice between small hive beetle and cold Canadian winters, which would you choose?
Small hive beetles, for sure. No questions. Now I'll say real quick, I like snow. I do like colder weather. I actually wished we got more winter than we do here. I don't want a Canadian winter. I don't want anything like that. I was born in Indiana, so I was raised with, we got snow every year. We get snow early November, and we get snow sometimes, like a flurry around late March, early April. So that's what I was raised around. And I have a lot of fond memories of making giant snowmen and even digging through drifts and making tunnels and sledding through tunnels of snow and then getting buried, and thankfully my brother's digging me out. So that's why we always go in pairs with those things, because if it would have been me by myself, I wouldn't be here to give you this message probably. So I definitely do love winter. I actually ski and skate, and I've done some snowboarding. So I one of my dreams in life is actually to be able to have enough money to be able to go somewhere around Christmas that it actually has some darn snow, because usually Christmas in Tennessee, you can sweat. And this year for Christmas, I was throwing football with my brothers without a shirt on and sweating. Yeah,
Boy, oh boy.
that's not Christmas. What a way to end a conversation right there.
Say, Kamon, I appreciate you coming with us. I apologize for my internet feed. Send all complaints to Elon Musk, I guess, right? With this Starlink.
He's just, it's the North Pole almost. I mean, it's rough for anybody.
Yeah, we're on beta up here, I guess, but we covered a lot of ground, and I appreciate your honest feedback to all the content we covered here. And I just want to say, I know you're a very busy person, so we appreciate you coming here to speak to us today. And just want to say, carry on the good work with your channel. It's a Kamon Reynolds at Tennessee Bees or Tennessee Beekeeper.
It's actually Tennessee's Bees. That's the name of our LLC. Because
Oh.
we primarily started, our goal was to produce, like 500 or 600 nukes a year, up to 1,000 one day, and now that's changed. But that was basically what we specialized in early on, was just focused on nukes specifically and selling those. So Tennessee's Bees. And I just want to say real quick that everybody's watching. Thanks for coming on, and you're an important part of beekeeping as well, because the guy that got me into it had 12 hives, and at that point in my life, I was 14 years old. I tried real honey for the first time. The only honey I'd ever had prior to that was the fake stuff they put in packets that's really more high fructose corn syrup than it is honey, and it was really gross. And so I had two different flavors, a spring and a fall, and both of them just really blew my mind. And you had an observation hive there, and I knew within moments that I needed to get into beekeeping, and I did. So just because you don't run as many hives as Ian does and brag about it, you can totally inspire.
See, there's those bad jokes again.
Yeah, that was a joke. I didn't realize. But no, I mean, if it wasn't for that guy keeping 12 hives of bees, who knows? Maybe I don't get into beekeeping. You just never know. So you can, keeping bees, it inspires more people to get into bees. Almost all of my honey customers, when I run into them, say, they buy local because their grandpa did, or their aunt had bees. Somebody they have that history of it. And so you're a part of that in creating a healthy culture of beekeeping in Canada, and for me in the United States. So thanks everybody for coming on, and thanks for asking me.